What the heck is IPM, and how come my customers don't know either? All on this edition of the Pest Geek Podcast. Pull out your hose and grab your can. We're about to integrate another Pest Geek Podcast. Hi, everybody. Frank Hernandez here, and welcome to the Pest Geek Podcast, bringing you the latest information on pests, products, and politics from today's leading industry sources to help you start, manage, and grow your pest control business. Welcome back to another edition of the Pest Geek Podcast. This is the bronchitis edition. I don't know how many times I'm going to have to stop this podcast to cough, but I've come down with bronchitis. And, it just reminds me of that first thing I think about is that video on Ain't Nobody Got Time for That. I don't have time for it. It's been grueling 5-6 days since last Tuesday. I started coming down with a cold. It seems like now there's 3 kids in the house and all of them in school. And if one comes down with it, everybody gets sick all the time. It's just ridiculous. I've never been so sick in my life, ever. I mean, I get maybe one cold a year if I'm lucky. I've gone several years without getting a cold, and all of a sudden, and here I end up with bronchitis. I get this strange cough, no runny nose, no nothing, and I'm just, coughing, and then it's getting worse, and I'm spending 3 or 4 nights without sleeping, thinking this thing's going to go away any minute. And I finally, on Sunday, I hadn't slept all night, and I said, I'm just going to go to the doctor, because, you got to, now if you call your doctor, you got to wait 2 weeks to see your doctor, which is another thing that's ridiculous. Every time I want to see a specialist, it's 2 to 3 weeks. Every time I want to see a doctor, it's 2 weeks. So I just go over to urgent care, which is a lot cheaper than going to emergency room. And, you got bronchitis. So, on antibiotics and, medication. And I got this super sexy voice to go with it. That's one of the advantages of getting a cold. I mean, I sound, like really sexy, and it just turns on all of the female listeners of this podcast. I start getting all kinds of texts and messages about it. So my wife doesn't like it, but I tell her it's just part of the program. You have to work with that. But thank you all for tuning in. I just haven't had a chance to produce a podcast. I got lots of things I want to talk about, but to sit down and put them in an order that it makes sense, not just coming out of my mouth and out of my brain, is hard work. And we decided I'm working on the strategy for next year. I have a long-term strategy for next year. The last 2 years are really paying off of the work I did, the infrastructure I laid online and in the business and the things that I've been doing. And it's time for me to start working on long-term strategic sales to land high-level accounts. I mean, I don't want to compete on the home and residential market where, everybody's competing in for the same restaurant, for the same house, for the same apartment building. We're going after some really unique stuff that nobody is going to go after, or if they are, I want to be there too. And so I started working on our long-term strategy for things that I wanted to focus on this year, clients I wanted to go and get. And it's a process, because you have to strategize how you're going to get that client. It's not going to be a one-time meeting, a one-time phone call. I don't believe in that kind of environment that you put out 10,000 postcards to those type of clients and you continue to send postcards until one of them calls you back. And then you all of a sudden get lucky. You have to make a strategy to go after them, because it's going to be 1, 2, 5 phone calls just to get somebody to talk to you. And then on top of that, it's going to be, maybe 6 months worth of work on the account, or a year to try to get that account, because chances are they already have a pest control company. So we are taking that business away, competing for it from whoever has it now. And you have to work really hard for that. But at the end, you get an account that is worth getting. And so we started working on that strategy. Wanted to look at my year-end numbers, figuring getting all of our stuff together for tax season, all the things you have to do to get ready, because usually January turns around and we're not ready and we have to go quickly and get everything done. So I decided this year I needed to get ahead of that and kind of figure out where we made our money. and where we didn't, what's worth, going after as a business, what is not. And every year we evaluate that once a year. I let things ride for a year and see how they're going, and then decide what we're going to do and not going to do. And so, I'm super stoked about our sales. I mean, our sales were up 37% this year compared to last year and the last 10 years. So we've really, really made a dent in focusing on getting our marketing, getting our word name out there, and making that happen. And it's a lot of strategizing, a lot of planning, a lot of implementing, and then a lot of wait and see and trial and error and change. And a lot of people just, don't want to do that. And that's what it takes to grow if you really want to grow a company. If you just want to be the tech that year after year you have the same clients, you do the same thing, and you go home, and after 20 years, you might find somebody to buy it from you, and because you have one route, that's great. I don't. I want to grow a business. I want to grow a company. I want to grow something that, we can either hand down to our kids, or at the end of the life of the business, we sell it off to somebody who's worth buying it. And, that's a long-term strategy. But anyway, I wanted to talk to you about what the heck is IPM and how come my customers have no clue about it. If I ask, if I ask people in the industry, what is IPM, I get 1,000 answers. I ask this every single time I do a class, because I believe in IPM. I believe that it is the best strategy for developing a pest control program. In and of itself, IPM is not a control program, but that's what most people are hung up about, and that's why most people don't get it. But I ask this in every class. I get a bunch of wacky answers. Occasionally, I get a really good answer, and then it seems like if I get a call from every client and says it goes something like this: the phone rings, I answered, thank you for calling so and so. This is so and so. How may I help you? And the next thing that comes out of the customer is, I need you to come out and spray for this, that, and the other. And they haven't read my website. They haven't been to any of the pages. They just, since we're ranking right up there on the first page of Google, they're calling the first person that they find. And they said, looks like what I'm looking for, and I need you to come out. And they don't read, any of the things that I put out. They don't understand. So I say, well, do you know what we do, and do you know how we do it? And I just need you to come out and spray for roaches, because that's what I guess they've bought for the last 20 years. And I have to sit them down and explain what it is that we do. Why are we different than every other company they're used to calling? And why will we actually get control of that problem when they continue to spray and not get control? And we have to explain integrated pest management, our process, and how we do it. And then that's our selling point. That's how we, the customer decides, because I guarantee you they're going, well, we're going to call around when I give them my price. And I give them my price over the phone after I've given them my sales presentation. I've qualified them. They agree that this is, what they want. Then it's, well, let me call around and see. We're looking at prices right now. Okay. I get a call within an hour or two, usually by the next day if they're going to do business with us. And we follow up all the time. But, we realize that if you don't call us back within a couple of hours, you already decided that we were either too expensive for you, or you bought the, we can spray it and get rid of that problem. Sure we can. So that's what we do. And I have to explain it to them every single time, because nobody knows what integrated pest management is. The funny part is it's been around forever, and it's taught by every major university. If you look on the web and you Google IPM or integrated pest management, you're going to get a million sources. The problem is nobody knows what that is. Nobody knows what it entails. Nobody knows anything about it, because the people that are writing about this are writing to an industry or writing to a specific segment of the industry that is looking for it. They're not marketers. They're not looking to market IPM as a viable pest control source and why people should be asking for IPM versus just for a spray. And the major companies like Orkin has very good advertising. To get a pest, you got to think like a pest. I think that's brilliant marketing that they're doing. And they're showing how, they're putting this little station up on a tree somewhere where you're not putting a spray. And I think they're doing a great job of marketing IPM in a certain way. Other large companies that are in Florida that are regional companies are doing IPM. They're doing a bang-up job at it, and they're getting major clients. But the general client and even commercial clients and even some industrial clients have no clue what IPM is. So when you're trying to sell integrated pest management, you have to explain to the customer all these things. I wanted to thank a couple of people for listening to this podcast. One of them is David Morgan, DMO in Arizona. Thank you for following us. Thank you for liking our stuff on Facebook. We really do appreciate that. Also, Pro Pest Control out of Sydney, Australia, at Pro Pest Controls on Twitter is following us in Australia from down under. Thank you so much for listening, for sharing and liking our stuff. We greatly do appreciate it. Also, if you find yourself wherever you find yourself, on iTunes, on Stitcher, on Podcast Addict, wherever, do us a favor, rate us, give us a review, write something nice about us, really nice. I mean, really pump up the podcast. Would you please? If you really enjoy it and you really like it, I would appreciate that. It really does help. Let other people know what the heck we're about. And I do appreciate all that all the iTunes reviews that we've gotten. I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much for making this podcast the success that it is by you sharing and liking our stuff and commenting on it. It really does help us. Continue to reach out to the National Pest Management Association regarding their activity, their representation of us. If we don't make a noise and we don't tell people what we think and we don't tell people what we need and we don't tell people how they can serve us, then they can't decide whether they want to serve us or not. And if organizations like the National Pest Management Association doesn't see the benefit of representing the small one-man company, then companies, organizations like CPCO in California, in Texas, in Miami, do represent the small local person. And that's fine. If you decide that you're going to cater to companies that do $1 million and up, that's great. That's your target market. You're a marketing company and you have a right to do whatever it is you want. But, reach out to them and let them know, hey, listen, get all that material that you have. Get it on iTunes. Get those conferences out on video. Get those conferences where we can buy them online, not have to order a CD or a DVD, which we don't own anyway. I don't own a DVD player. I don't own a CD player. I got one in my car. I don't carry a dozen CDs. I plug in my iPhone and I listen to it on my iPhone. That's the new media. That's where things need to be, where we can access them whenever we want, not say I got to carry around a bag of 200 CDs just to listen to you. So, get with them. Tell them you want this stuff. Let them know. Contact them online. Call your local representative. But call the national. I mean, they don't have commenting on their blog. They don't have a blog. Facebook page is, only about the events that they're going to. Not a whole lot of interaction online. They really need to get a media department, an online media department to really cater to the online media. They have probably the biggest chance. I mean, you got a group like Pest Cemetery. Has like 3,000 members on that. They could be getting that and they could have those people on there and they don't, so, you're doing something right when you're trying to engage the audience that's out there. And, kudos to Jerry and everybody that's involved with that, for providing a great source, a great outlet for people to talk about pest issues and problems and guidance and get together. There's some brilliant people on there. You need to really get on one of those. I'm going to put a link up on our website at the member section of all the Facebook groups that are out there that we're on, and we're trying to get involved in. It does take time. You got to invest time. You got to make time for this thing if you want to share. You can't just, drive by and do a drive-by. You should get involved and let them know. Let them know what's going on. Also, if you want to join the podcast, 707-395-7378 is the phone number to call 24/7. Also, you can reach out to us at questions. That's questions, plural, pestgeekpodcast.com. And, send us an email. You can also go on the Pest Geek Podcast website, leave a comment there. Just get involved, man. We really want to let the world know what it is that we do and what as pest professionals we do and how we can do it better and how we can be the best. This podcast is dedicated to all those who absolutely want to be the best. If you want to work 8 hours a day, go home, kick up your feet, drink a beer, watch television, and numb out. That's up to you. You have a right to do that. If you want to be the absolute best, you're going to have to put in effort, time, energy, and resources and money into learning to be the best. And this podcast is dedicated to all those that want to be the best. So thank you, because I know that I'm getting a lot of calls. I get a lot of emails. I get a lot of messaging on people stoked and excited about what we're doing. And no matter how busy I get, I feel I owe it to the audience to provide the absolute best content that I can provide, not just produce something every week because I have a schedule to produce it. I'm really focused on getting really top talent in here to talk about things and to really talk about issues and to talk about products and services and things that really make your life better. So thank you. The tip of the week. Hey, look, if you want to do crack and crevice, all right, but you got to buy dedicated equipment to do crack and crevice because most of the time the equipment is expensive. I mean, you're going to spend anywhere between $175 to $200 and something for good crack and crevice equipment. And you haven't done it. You don't know if you want to do it. And how do you get it done very cheaply? Well, I'm going to show you. I'm going to put over on the member section of the podcast, I'm going to put in a tutorial on how to make your own crack and crevice equipment from a regular, $9 sprayer. That way you have nothing invested but $9 or $10, and you can start doing crack and crevice and see if you like it. And how that works for you. You can decide, geez, I did this entire house with like 4 ounces of chemical versus a gallon. You talk about major save. And the funny part is you do it in about the same time that it would take you to spray the entire house. Different than Pinstream, but it works really well. And I actually have one of those on my truck because I have certain areas that I'll do that I don't want to squat down. I don't want to use the B&G. I don't want to, you got to buy another B&G if you're going to use non-repellents. And then you have to buy the attachment. B&G does have a crack and crevice attachment that you can put on the nozzle and turn your B&G into a crack and crevice with a 1. But if you've never done it and you want to try it out, man, this won't cost you a penny. Just $9-10 to buy a cheap hand-held plastic sprayer and then convert it. And I'm going to show you how to do that over on the members blog. I'm going to create a little tutorial on it, how to do it, so that you can try it out and see if crack and crevice, I mean, if you can do it that way, you can do about the same amount of work that it takes to spray baseboards, but you use a ton less chemical and you do it in the same amount of time. If you can do 4 ounces to about 8 ounces per house, think about it. It's 128 ounces to a gallon. How many more houses could you do with the same amount of chemical? And do it in the same amount of time, the same speed, and not have to slow down. So I think it's a great way to reduce pesticide exposure and to reduce the amount of product that you use, equaling more profit for you. The book of the week. This is a great book. This book is for people who really want to become great leaders. It's called Multipliers, How the Best Leaders Make Everyone Smarter. If you're interested in being the go-to guy and managing everyone and controlling everything, guess what? You're not a leader. You're a manager, and you're getting everybody to come to you for all the answers because that's what makes you feel important and feel like you're doing everything right. Well, let me tell you something. You're not growing. And unless your people grow, the people are never going to grow beyond your ability to lead them to grow. And you need to be able to rise yourself in order to be able to raise up good people. Liz Wiseman and Greg McEwen are the authors of the book, Multipliers. Check out that book. You can download it on Audible. We got a link to it on our blog page. Check it out. And in the mergers and acquisition front, American Pest out of Maryland acquires Green Star Pest out of Virginia, Manassas, Virginia. Green Star Pest and Termite was acquired by them. So check it out. There's a link to it on mypmp.net. I got a link to it. Acquire. You can know more about it if it's in your area. And you might want to know how that's going to affect you because you probably know who these two companies are. So in any case, getting to our topic of what the heck is IPM? Well, if you don't know what IPM is, and believe me, a lot of people don't. 99.9% of my clients, I've only had one client two clients that have ever called me asking if we did IPM. And I asked them, how do you know about IPM? He says, well, we were Googling to do IPM, and you came up. That's really, they were looking into IPM. They wanted IPM, and we said, yes, we do IPM. One of them we ended up doing a lot of work for. These were doctors working on an asthma project that we're still working on. And I wish I could divulge the details of that, but I don't have permission to. It has a lot to do with funding and things that they're doing to try to get awareness of what they need to do to deal with asthma inner city. And one of these days, I'm going to have one of those doctors on to talk about that because that's a huge issue. But anyway, we ended up doing a lot of work with them, and we're continuing to do that. And we're pushing to see how we can do more work and help them with funding and things like that to get this initiative going, because that is something that I'm really passionate about. But it's the standard in public schools. The problem is 99% of pest control techs have never done pest control in a private school. They've never seen the contract for what it takes to do pest control in a public school. They haven't downloaded the IPM protocol manual for that school region. I suggest you do that. I suggest you go to your local school district, go Google it online, and download the IPM program, their IPM manual. It will give you great insight into developing and how they're planning to control pests. Government buildings. All of our government buildings in all the counties have to implement IPM as part of pest control. It's the standard in LEED buildings. LEED buildings from the American Green Building Council. Hospitals. It's the standard. High-end hotels. I mean, if you've never done work for like a Marriott or something like that, it's the standard. Airports. It's the standard. Anywhere there is large amounts of people that you don't know what is going on, IPM is the standard because you don't know what people are allergic to, what they're sensitive to, what's the deal. The problem is, like I said, 99% of the industry is focused on doing residential work and residential pest control, and then doing pest control, moving that to small commercial, mom and pop restaurants, mom and pop stores, and they run into brick walls when they try to do commercial because it's so much easier to do residential. It takes you to really up your skills to deal with the pest problems in commercial accounts, especially food service accounts, where you have all the restrictions on the products that you can't use the same way you use them in residential. So how come nobody's heard of IPM? A lot of people have heard of IPM. They still don't know what it is. Customers don't know what it is. Yet it's, like I said, it's every major university puts out a ton of information on IPM. Well, there's a couple of different protocols for IPM. The problem is it's different for every industry. For instance, if you're a farmer, IPM in farming is totally different than IPM for lawn and ornamental. Now, you can take the principles and apply them, but it's totally different. You don't have crop rotation in lawn and ornamental. There are a lot of things you don't have in lawn and ornamental that you can't control. So monitoring and inspection, much difficult, much easier to do monitoring inspection on a farm where you are there every single day. You're on a route and you've got hundreds of clients on that route and you might only see that client once a quarter. It is impossible to do real monitoring, real inspections, unless you're there on that property more frequently. Part of our program is there's everybody around here doing quarterly and monthly, and their landscapes look like that's what they're doing. It's reflecting that issue. That's why we're on our property once a month. And we design a program because if you really want a nice landscape, you need to be there once a month. Minimum inspecting and monitoring. How do you know that you're actually getting control? How do you know the difference between a follow-up that you should have done and a callback? Because you're looking at it as a callback. But in essence, is it really your failure to follow up that led to that call? Or was it a legitimate callback? Was it a legitimate after you've done the all clear, after you've not seen anything, after your monitors are clean, and the customer calls back? That's a callback because the customer saw one roach or the customer saw one thing. But how much of it, of your callbacks, is it because of your protocols? And how much of it is a legitimate callback? In the nursery environment, it's totally different because you have hundreds of plants of the same species all in one location. So if you get one pest one where it's going to multiply very quickly and you need to act quickly. But you have the convenience that you have workers right there that can respond to it immediately. There's no travel. Operating in a route environment and operating in a stationary environment where everything is controlled in a greenhouse, temperature is controlled, the water is controlled, the irrigation is controlled. A lot of things are controlled that you don't have that in the landscape. You have proper cultural practices in the nursery and in the farm. You don't have good cultural practices in the landscape. I mean, all it takes to become a landscaper is you to get a truck, decide you have no job, you have no work, and you need to go work and there's nothing more that you can really do. And the easiest thing is to become a landscaper because you want to earn extra money. A lot of people do it for extra money. A lot of people do it because, they're convicts. They can't get a job anywhere. They got fired and they're 55 years old and nobody's going to hire them in their market. And they go out and buy a bunch of equipment and go do landscape. I mean, how hard can it be to do landscape? And yet I see 90% of all the problems that I find in a landscape, it's due to one of three things. It's due to improper cultural practice, improper mowing, trimming. They're either mowing that lawn too short, they're not mowing it frequently enough, they're over irrigating, they planted the wrong plant in the wrong place, or simply they transmit diseases to the palm trees and things like that by not sterilizing their equipment. I mean, they have no clue really of what it takes to do real landscape work because they're not horticulturists, they're not botanists. They're not trained in a nursery to sterilize their pans, to put them out in the sun, because you can sterilize them. That if if these containers, these liners, and you're reusing them, and they have a bacteria, it's going to transmit it to the cultivar. They don't understand these things, and then IPM is different. Then you take IPM in residential, and it's totally different than being in an industrial environment. I mean, how many of us have actually seen the inside of an inspected, USDA inspected, meat packing plant that, is inspected all the time for quality assurance and things like that, and dealing with pest problems there, dealing with a facility that's open 24 hours, that's operating 24 hours a day, and you have to do pest control. Most of us have never been in that environment. So we have no clue. We think that the whole world of pest control is just doing residential roaches, ants, and bedbugs, and then sealing for bats. And, and there's all kinds of work. But the more that you're going to get involved with, the more difficult it is, the more it's worth, and the more training and knowledge that you need. And a lot of people just are satisfied staying at a low level. But yet there's higher levels of pest management that only maybe 1% of the nation gets to do. And the question is, do you want to do that? Do you want to aspire to that? I mean, I know techs that are making, working these types of accounts, making $85,000 a year doing this kind of work. because that's where the money is in the high level. But they're working for large companies with the marketing budgets and the advertising and the salespeople to get those kind of contracts. So again, it's all depending. IPM is going to mean different things to different people, depending upon where. But the principles, the 5 principles of IPM, which is inspection, identification, monitoring, implementing a control program, and sanitation. Those are the basic 5 principles of IPM. You have to learn to principleize what you do versus tasks. Showing up, spraying a house without inspecting, without identifying what they have, and leaving, collecting your money out the door, is not IPM. That's not even pest management. You might as well tell the customer, listen, what you do is, if you want to control the pest, what you do is you take a gallon of the home pest control solution that they sell at the supermarket, at the home improvement store, and you pour that, forget about that little pump spray that they have. No. You take it and you pour that into a $9 compressed air sprayer, and then just spray your baseboards, because the solution is at that same rate. It's at about a 6%, no matter what you use, and you'll get the same amount of control. I mean, really, if you're going to pay me $35, you can just buy it for $15 for the gallon, and you can do it for half the price. And then you can spray your interior and spray around your windows, spray around your doors, just like a pro. You can go online, domyownpestcontrol.com, and you can buy the product, mix 1 ounce of this, and spray it all over, and you're going to do the same thing I did. I mean, really. And this is why people say, why should I pay a pest control person when that's all that he's doing? Highly trained people will identify the problem, know where the source is, know how they're breeding, know the biology, understand which chemistry works best to control that problem, and do it without having to contaminate the entire house to do it. You see, that's what IPM is all about, reducing exposure and getting control. If you're not interested in reducing exposure to pesticides because you have the attitude that you don't care, or you have the attitude like the label says it's safe if applied as directed. Well, the label also said that Roundup, glyphosate, was safe. Yet, they're now proving that non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is caused by glyphosate. So tell me, really, who are you going to believe? You're going to believe that everything is safe because if applied according to, and just apply it nilly-willy, where that little child who's, 6 months old and is learning to crawl is walking all over that floor. And you're going to hold on to, really, it's safe because everybody says it's safe until somebody's proven that it isn't. See, the point of it is reducing chemical exposure and getting real control. A lot of the time, you're doing all the chemical exposing and you're getting no control because you're not willing to look at the other 5 aspects, or the customer has the attitude, I'm not going to change it. I'm not going to do anything different. Just spray it. I mean, I don't care. I just had a call from a client. You've all been there. You've all seen it. The pace, quite frankly, is a pig slop. I mean, pigs live better than these people. We have to deal with that. Get to the house. They got a flea and tick problem. I've done the spray before. I've done the service. I spray their yard. I use an IGR. I use 2 insecticides with 2 modes of action. And indoors, I use a less toxic product. And I crack and crevice and I do all this. And they call me back and say, I still have fleas. They're crawling all over the place. And the ticks, they're crawling all over the place. Yeah. You got furniture everywhere. Everything is there's food all over the place. You have not 1 dog. You have 3 dogs in there, of which you're not treating. And you said, well, we're going to put them on the chews. That's just that we had to order and they're not here. And it's been 3 weeks. And you're not bathing the dogs. And you're thinking this pest control is going to solve your problem. So the mother of the son who's in the house doesn't realize he's got 3 ducks. She's in one state and he's here in Miami. He's not cleaning. He's got 3 dogs in there, and he's renting the rooms out in the house to his roommates. You talk about, I couldn't walk in that room because there were so many clothes on the floor. Am I really going to spray the floor with all those clothes around, and then the guy wears the clothes and tells me that I contaminated him? No, I'm not going to spray the room. I'm going to tell him, listen, I'm not going to spray in here. There's no way I'm touching this. I'm not going to crawl all over this floor. And the parent writes me back, and I write her a nice gingerly email saying, hey, listen, the housekeeping needs to be attended to. There's 3 other dogs in the house, and there's 2 other people living there. Oh, I didn't realize that. These are the things we all run into. And, because the people won't clean, because they won't seal, because they won't exclude, we just continue to apply pesticide, take the money, and look the other way. And I used to do it, and I got tired, and I said, look, I'm never going to get you control, and I'm not going to risk a bad review of you going online and reviewing our business badly because, quite frankly, you're a pig. And I tell people, I look at them and says, listen, I got into houses, the place is in disrepair, and I said, look, there isn't anybody in the world that's going to get you control. You got to fix these problems. You got to fix all this. I'm sorry, but I'm not taking you on as a client. This is a no-win situation for me. You're going to call me back. Because the problem is, those are the ones that call back and complain the most. I mean, they feel that, because they paid for a high-priced pest control, that I should have gotten them control. And they're not looking at the hole that, literally, you could get a Rottweiler to fit through the holes that were in that attic. And we're not talking about a little hole. We're talking about roof water damage. There's water damage everywhere. The house is in disrepair. And why a pest control company would take on that contract and not be honest with the client and says, nobody can really solve this for you. And on top of that, you're going to work twice as hard, and you're not going to get, and then on top of that, no good deed ever goes unpunished. You're going to give them a discount because you feel bad for them. And then they're going to make your life a living hell afterwards. Do you see the problem because of the ignorance and the uneducation of the client? So we work with clients. We try to educate our clients. If we feel the client isn't going to comply, we just can't take them on because we're not going to risk all the headaches. Every time that customer calls, he's going to take me away from somebody that's actually paying money to do it right. Every time that customer complains, every time something happens, it's a distraction. I lose money on all those types of accounts. I don't never make money. So what happens is, now I'm going to throw you a curveball. Something that's happening right now that you need to be aware of. We did at the beginning of the year, we got called on a bed bug job, and we did it. And they had been trying to control that for their current pest control company was spraying the heck out of that house for 6 months. Couldn't get control. We went in, we told her, this is what it's really going to take. By the time we were done, it was like $2,000. And, when I found out what she's doing that led to the bed bug problem. Clean lady, immaculate house, really nice person. But she's renting out her rooms to people from other countries that coming here to stay in Miami for a short period of time and renting out her rooms. Students that are going to university. So she rents out rooms in her house. Wow. Talk about a problem. And I got a call the other day from a client saying, look, I'm renting out my house to Airbnb people. I'm having ants, having roaches. And they wanted to know if we covered bed bugs. And I said, no, we do not cover. In our contract, standard pest control is only covered. Bed bugs, termites, and everything is excluded. Here's another. You're going to start dealing with clients who are renting out their house to Airbnb. It's becoming Airbnb is doing a ton of radio advertising here and television advertising here in Miami. And now you're no longer dealing with a residence. You're dealing with a bed and breakfast. That's a business. That's a separate nightmare. I find out that she's bringing in the suitcase. I said, listen, we're going to solve this problem for you. But if you don't listen to me, you're going to end up back here again next year with another problem. The suitcases need to come in through the garage. They need to take all their clothes out of their suitcases and immediately you put them in a dryer. And the suitcase gets put in a bag and sealed and stays out here until they're ready to leave. I was thinking about putting some strips in there, telling her, here, put the strip inside the bag, seal the bag in Nuvon strips, and, sealing the bag and putting it out in the garage. Well, I come back, I'm coming out on a quarterly basis for an inspection. We got monitors. We're inspecting, making sure that this doesn't happen again. And I come and I see a room full of suitcases. She's having her old guy coming back in now, spraying the house again, and having the suitcase. I mean, they never learn. The client doesn't learn. Doesn't understand that she's begging for it. It cost her $2,000, and she's expecting that because I'm inspecting, because the other guy is coming back to spray, she's not going to have the problem. I said, you got to stop that. He couldn't solve it the first try. What makes you think he's going to prevent it now? He's been your pest control guy for 15 years. That's the sad part of it. The same guy for 15 years. She's paying $30 a month to get her house sprayed. This is what we see constantly, that it is because of the ignorance, because of the lack of education, because the customer doesn't understand that real IPM is very difficult to do. I understand it. What's going to happen is they got to pull all those over-the-counter products and stop letting people do their own pest control. And because people are buying pest control online with no training on how to do it. And they're thinking they can control it because it's the chemical. So in an environment where you're doing IPM, in order for you to get it done, there has to be a collaboration and cooperation of the client. The client becomes your partner in making sure that things are done the way they're supposed to be done. The only way to do it is for your client to become your partner. Your partner in understanding how to identify the problems, making sure that the sanitation is proper, making sure that, in other words, if you don't have an IPM checklist of things they need to do on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, that they check off. In other words, is the dumpster area have lids on it? Do the dumpers have overspill? Is there debris on the ground? Are they being pressure cleaned out on a regular basis? Are the when you have an employee that's bringing in boxes to the building, are they immediately removing those boxes? When a new tenant is moving in, is the boxes being removed right away? Did they go dumpster diving for those boxes to move? And the building manager and the people, this only works usually on a larger scale. They're inspecting. Do the plumbers, the people that work in maintenance, when they go into an apartment unit, are they trained to look for bed bugs? Are they looking in those cabinets and they're seeing there's pest inside those cabinets? Because if all you're paying for is a door-to-door spray service, I hear people going, why do you charge, you only do 20% of the units or 25% of the units? Because we're doing IPM. We're using 5 different products throughout the year. We're sealing. We're preventing that problem from happening again. If you're doing a door-to-door spray service, you're not getting any control in that building. Not unless you're doing something off-label. If all you're doing is spraying the baseboards in the kitchens and the bathroom on an apartment unit, and what is the biggest excuse? Well, the biggest excuse is we don't have the personnel. We don't have the time, and they're not willing to pay for it. There's always a way to get things done. If the management, Like people want to switch over from a traditional spray service to an eco-friendly. We got a lot of associations that are wanting to do that. But the management has to understand it's a partnership. You can't demand from the tech that he spray every unit every single month. That's not IPM. It has to be focused. It's about being focused. It's about putting out monitors, about understanding. So, where are your biggest problems? Are the people looking for bed bugs? Do the people who work in the building? I get calls from apartment buildings all the time, from individual residents, saying, I have bed bugs. And have you told the manager? No. I don't know how I got these bed bugs. I said, chances are you're spreading them all over the building, or somebody spread them to you. You need to tell the manager. I'm afraid to tell the manager because they're going to kick us out. There's a problem already. I mean, we don't do that. We don't do those kind of work. We don't do on individual units unless we're doing the one above, the one beneath, the one in back of that. All around, we're inspecting all those units and getting them treated, just like if it was a hotel room. I mean, there's a lot of things you have to refuse to do in order to, actually be in business, because a lawsuit is not going to be easy. So the sanitation, what people consider sanitation, is not pest control sanitation. I got a customer who just took on a new building, had mice in. I tell her, listen, it looks like you have mice. No, but I don't want to pay for mice service because, we're doing all this investment and the mindset. I just want the roach problem gone. No, well, okay, fine. But you have mice. No, I haven't seen a mice in here. 2 weeks later, she's calling me saying, I just see a mice walking around on the camera. You need to come here and do something. I said, nope, it's not in our contract. I told you. Now it's going to cost you this much to get it done. Because they want to save the money. I mean, I don't understand the mindset of you're investing $30, $40, $50, $100,000 into a food service. You're buying all this equipment. And you're going to take the risk, really, of one customer seeing a mice or one customer seeing a roach that could cost you your business online. Really. Over $500 or $600 that it's going to do the setup to get this done. And in light of everything, that restaurant is going to produce $30,000 a month in revenue if it's a small mom and pop. And we're talking $125 a month for pest control, which is what percentage of your sales? But yet it can cost you a bad review online and nobody wants to eat there, and it'll cost you thousands of dollars. Let me think about that. So the drains, she bought another restaurant. The drains are smelling. I said, listen, whatever you do, clean. When you're done cleaning this entire place out, you're done stripping it down and cleaning it. Don't put any more chemical in here. No bleach, no nothing. Give it a week. Let it rest. Then give me a call. Show up. I couldn't even breathe in there. There was so much bleach. No, they just poured bleach down the drains. I said, I told you not to do that. I told you why you can't do that, because you're going to mess up everything else I'm going to try to do in here. They do it anyway. So I was going to totally flush out those drains and foam them and, use the Bacchus app and the DSV. We're going to talk about it on the next program about foaming, because I think it's an awesome opportunity to make some extra money and do some really, really good work. But, think about it. Makes IPM the ignorance of the client. So unless you're going to do a lot of education, and unless you're going to show clients and then keep working with them on why they need to improve and what they need to, like I have one client that it took me forever. It took me 6 months to get them to understand they needed to seal and fix all those roof tiles. But I continuously tell them every month. It's about you having an inspection protocol and saying, these are the deficiencies you have. This is what's going to cost you a pest. Start working on it. Hey, listen, I saw that you did this. Awesome. I saw that you did that. And then you start rewarding the client, really, for doing good things. I mean, it really comes down to that. I took one manager and I said, listen, if you get this done for me, you're going to stop seeing the complaints. She did it. No more complaints on large roaches in that building. I mean, we had holes all over those ceiling tiles. and they were coming in from one part of it. I can put a product up there, but really, do I want to put a bait product up on a ceiling tile so they remove one of those ceiling tiles and now there's bait falling all over whatever it is? You can't do it. Customer doesn't understand. It's not in the label. You can't do it. Customer doesn't understand why you can't put chemical product here. Integrated pest management. Has to do with both the client and the technician in the company working together to prevent the problems. If that doesn't happen, you never really do have an integrated pest management program, even though it's on your brochure. I was listening to a radio interview about a reporter that went overseas, and the reason he went with that tour company is because the tour company, he's writing a book and he's doing reporting. He's in India, and they said, he goes in and his battery's running low on his tablet, and he wants to write something, and he says, where do I plug in, my charger? And the tour person says, oh, no charger on this bus. He says, but wait, it's in the brochure. He says, it's in the brochure, not in the bus. So, just because you say something doesn't mean you can actually get it done if the other party doesn't cooperate. What is IPM is not chemical rotation. Chemical rotation is just part of smart pest control. Because you're rotating from bifenthrin to cypermethrin, you're not rotating the chemical. You're still in the same class. You need to change the class in order to accurately rotate, or you need to change it also in a way that's different. In other words, switch from a powder to a bait. Switch from a liquid application to a non-repellent dust or something like that to change. I walk into a house inevitably to do a roach service. There's the roach pills on the floor. There's the dust on top of the roach pill. There's the bait running across the backboard with the dust and the roach pill. And right next to it is a station. And there's a can of Raid in the sink. And I look at all this and I say, my God, what a hodgepodge. He says, I've tried everything. Nothing works. What are you going to do? Well, I'm going to use baits, dust, liquids, and stations. That's not going to work. I tried it. I said, no, we're just going to put them in the right place, the right type, at the right amount to get this done. You see me vacuuming up all the boric acid that they've put out, or whatever it is. I mean, there's just, stuff all over the place. Not understanding that it's the right chemistry and the right biology. And then I got to figure out how bad have they screwed this up that I'm not going to get control. So I got to do, what did you use? What did you apply? When did you apply it? When was the last time? What area did you apply it in? Show me the can. I'm just glad they don't ever show me a can of like a DDT or malathion that they sprayed inside the house. Exclusion is too expensive. Chemical is cheaper than labor. The sad part is I don't hear that from the customer. I hear that from a lot of pest control technicians. Chemical is cheaper than labor. As long as chemical is cheaper than labor, people will keep applying, keep spraying, and not getting control. Let me ask you a question. IPM, in reality, I'm going to make a statement. In reality, IPM in the short term is very expensive. IPM in the long run is less expensive because it doesn't expose people to the possibility of chronic toxicity. I don't care about that, and that is not my problem. Well, you have a very sorry attitude and a very negligent one at that, because as pest control professionals, our job is to protect people's property, people's health, protect the environment. We're environmentalists, whether you want it or not. And when you take that position that you don't care what you're spraying in the house, You don't care what you're spraying in that environment. You're no longer a pest control professional. You're a hack. You don't care that all of a sudden at what dosage that was sprayed, whether that product was even approved for spraying. It was only a crack and crevice product, and you sprayed it because you don't care. You're exactly what's wrong with the industry. You're either ignorant or you're stupid. One of the two. In either case, you're not a professional. Professionals are not ignorant. Professionals know their stuff. Professionals get trained. Professionals pay the price for education. Professionals buy books. Professionals read. They go to conferences. They collaborate with other professionals to do better. That's what professionals do. Why IPM is not being done more is because it's very impractical. It requires commitment from a lot of people. Human nature is to resist change, to resist doing anything harder, to resist spending more. That's human nature. A lot of the big guys are talking about it. They are promoting it. But also here from the business perspective, IPM is not conducive to rapid growth. And the industry and what you see now is with all these mergers and acquisitions, you get a lot of marketers that have figured out, if I can just get rapid growth and I can build up a branch or I can build up a business to a $1 to $3, $4, $5, $10 million business very quickly, I can sell it off and be mega rich. Just like I did with computers, just like I did with software, with online technology. You need rapid growth in an environment where prices are stagnant and people are dropping their price. So a lot of companies will do that. The high quality guys, like, people like me, people who want to do supreme work. There's a statement from Sam Walton, the former president and founder of Walmart. He says, if you want to live with the classes, you have to sell to the masses. If you're going to live with the masses, you will sell to the classes. If you sell a very little product to a few people, you will live along pretty much with everybody else. But if you want the house on the hill, you want the Bentleys, you want the Rolls Royces, you got to sell to the masses. It's all about mass production. That's the reality. That's the reality about business. You get one or the other. You can't get the top quality guy, but then he can't come to you because he's got to run 36 stops a day and not be available when you need him. If you're going to have him available when you need him, then you need to pay him really well so that he can stop what he's doing and take care of you so he doesn't have 1,000 customers on his route. And 1,000 being, obviously hyperbole. I don't think anybody has 1,000 clients on their route. What you got to ask yourself is, it's not conducive to growth because you have to be able to move. Well, you can still grow and you can still move and still do IPM. The problem is you just need two people to do it. You need a tech that goes out and does your cleanouts, does all your IPM work, your inner work, and then people that just do the PM. Whenever there's a problem, you send one or the other. That way you can still have a route in operation, but you have a highly trained technician doing the initial service until the all clear, and then you can turn it over to a junior technician who can do the PM. There's a way to do it. There's always a way to do it. That's what I've done. We're almost exclusively an outdoor service company. Once we get the clean out, once we do the integrated pest management, once we do the void treatments, once we do the sealing, it's all about controlling everything on the outside. And rarely do we have to step foot inside a property again. Rarely. There's the exceptional properties that's always a problem, but that's an exception. So the question I have for you is, the second thing is, for the person who is insecure, is creating job security. If I solve their past problem, they will cancel their service, and then they won't need me anymore, and then I lose the revenue. Well, this is the same people that will complain that the medical profession doesn't really want to cure diseases because the drug companies will go out of business and they will prevent people from really finding cures to diseases because they will be out of business. Doesn't it sound like the same hypocrisy to say that, to think that way, to do that? Think about it. I won't really solve the customer's problem and get rid of it because it keeps them on the hook. Huh. That's interesting. The reality is, I already know from my sales presentation if that's going to be a long-term client or a one-time client. One-time clients pay this price. Customers that want a commitment pay this other price. We have contracts. Commercial, we have to have contracts. Residential clients, most of them we realize they're one-time service. We sell them as one-time service. We charge the heck out of it, but we're going to solve that problem. And we're going to go beyond that, and we're going to still do the sealing. And we're going to do the void treatments because we're going to prevent that problem from becoming a problem for you again. And we're going to charge you for it. But we're doing the right thing by you, the client, by doing all those extra services, knowing that we're going to make that place where these pests want to live, underneath your voids, underneath the cabinets, behind the walls, in those places where they're going to make nests. We're going to make it inhospitable for them so that you're not constantly depending on a pest control service. What we offer you is an exterior pest control service that prevents that problem from happening again, so that you don't have hassles. I mean, it's a hassle-free service. So if you don't mind roaches here and there, you just go with the one-time service. But if you say, I don't want to see roaches all the time, and I don't want to see ants, and I don't want to call you back every time, I just want you to keep this place nice and clean for me so I can live happily and focus on other things that are more important besides this, that's who I want as a client. And they're going to pay me regardless of what I do, whether I'm there once a month or where I'm every. They just don't want to deal with the pest problem. That's my client. So the second thing is, by doing it the way you're doing it and not doing IPM, are you really controlling the problem, or are you just repelling it and moving those pests all over the house or all over the property, all over the building? Are you really getting control, or are you just repelling them? If you stopped spraying today, how long will it be before you had a nightmare on your hands? And that's going to tell you whether you're really getting control or not. Do you have a clue of the life cycle of that pest? Are you treating in a way where you're allowing that egg to incubate and start a whole new life cycle? I get it all the time with plants. Quarterly services on plants. Really? That whitefly will lay 200 eggs in its lifetime, roughly. Several times during its lifetime, and you're spraying it once every 3 months. By the time you come back, we have 3-4 generations. No wonder you're not getting control. See, is it a callback, or is it a failure to implement the right protocols to really get control? Because you're doing it based on a sales cycle, based on how many customers you need on that route to make a profit based on your business model, or is it really that you're getting control? Is it you sold a one-time service with one application knowing that you need 2 or 3, but because the customer was only willing to pay for one, customer calls you back a week later saying, I still have a problem. Was that a callback, or was that a failure in protocol? How much of your callbacks are really a failure of protocol. You don't understand. I was thorough. I inspected everything. Did the product fail? Did the customer do something that caused the product to fail? Like immediately going after you and mopping all the floors with bleach? What happened? There's a lot of training that has to go on. I train all my customers how to clean their house. You say, well, that's insulting. You tell people, no, because I tell them, avoid this, avoid this, avoid this, avoid this, at least for this time period until we get this under control. Then you can go back to doing whatever it is you want. See, I've built a business around my personal beliefs. I sell the customer a solution that really solves the customer's problem. And I build a reputation for having that integrity. Is the company you're working for or what you're doing consistent with that? Because if your beliefs and the company's beliefs are different, you don't have a fit. And the people in pest control do not think about cultural fit. That is something that's left up to the corporate people in software, in something, because really, we're really a bunch of blue collar, not so bright people who have no education type of business. Really? People have values. Everyone has values. And what you're trying to do is saying, are you hiring the right people with the right cultural fit, with the right mentality to match those values? Do you even have values for your company? See, really, it's more about values and more about what's important than it is about technique, procedure, or chemical. Are you treating the symptoms, or are you really finding a cure? Most of the time that, it requires, highly trained techs who are willing to do more than just spray. People that are handy, that are willing to do minor repairs and clean and vacuum and steam. And I'm not a cleaning person. I'm not their maid to be cleaning up for them. Well, if that's what it takes to do a better job and you're getting paid, why not do it? See, this is the difference between somebody who finds a niche and says, when nobody's doing this, I'll just go do what nobody else is doing. Instead of the common tech that goes out and says, instead of saying, I'm going to go do the same thing everybody else is doing and figuring out why I can't compete. You got to find a niche. So if you're willing to vacuum, steam, foam, seal, when we're done, people like jaws literally drop. They've never seen a service like this in their entire life. It's an experience. It's almost like, having a culinary experience at a 7-course meal. Never seen that in their life. Most people have never seen a 7-course meal in their life. When they see us vacuuming and they see us going in and putting little holes behind the wall so that the product is not exposed. It's almost an experience. The way I kind of see, because I can see it both ways, I guess. I don't know. I'm just wired that way. Kind of like when, the former founder of Apple decided that he was going to get into the phone business and create a phone with just one button. And the board didn't want to go along with it because we were a computer company, not a phone company. We didn't sell phones. Stick with your little iPads and your little pods. And he said, the problem with people is that they wouldn't know a good idea if it hit them on the head. Innovative companies create products that people don't want yet and make them want it. I want my iPad. I want my iPhone. And I want it because it's different and I think better than everything else out there. There are customers and techs that are still hoping. They're living in 1960, still hoping that DDT will come back. Man, they really need to bring DDT back. Really? There are people who want IPM. They just don't know that they want it. What they think they want, because what's happened is, with the advent of people not wanting toxic chemicals in their home, that's, in quotes, toxic chemicals, has given advent to the snake oil salesperson. I got to be politically correct, because if I call you a salesman, you would be offended. The women are all going to be, I'm a salesperson, I'm not a salesman. So, snake oil salesperson. They used to be snake oil salesmen because women didn't sell snake oil for some reason. So now FIFRA 25B exempt products is what people are wanting. The problem is you can't solve every problem with a FIFRA 25B exempt product. You're not going to really solve a German roach infestation in a heavily infested multi-unit with 25B exempt products. Not really. So what people really want is IPM. The problem is they don't know it because integrated pest management in itself doesn't click. It's not marketable. It's not, nobody has gone out and said, let's make IPM. The people who have the money to do it haven't done it. The National Pest Management Association hasn't really marketed it. I've heard some reports that they are doing some stuff. But can you imagine what that would mean to introduce integrated pest management as the greatest thing since the B&G can? The goal of IPM is to protect the environment and get control. Protect the things you touch, the air you breathe, the water you drink, the food you eat, the ground you walk on, and the wildlife it impacts. You need to have a holistic approach in your life. In order to really be good at integrated pest management, have a conviction. And to have a view that says, this is greater than me making $35 and killing roaches on a monthly basis. We are environmentalists. And the world doesn't see us as environment because we protect people from diseases that those pests would spread in a hospital and in any other circumstance. And yet people don't see us as that. If you're not sick today in a hospital, you need to thank somebody more than the doctor. If you see that you can solve a problem by sealing a hole, cleaning a pipe, using a glue board, setting a trap, declutter, why would you just close your eyes to all that and say, I'll just spray it and the heck with it? Because the bottom line is, if you have that attitude, you don't care. I know a lot of people listening to this podcast are the ones that do care. So do me a favor. Find someone that doesn't care and go ahead and send them the podcast and just piss them off even more. If you have to use a chemical, can it be one with the lowest impact? Can you use a bait versus a spray? Will you get better results with the bait? It's incredible to me how some people behave just like the client. They got a unit that's infested and they'll take out, the pyrethrin flush and, start spraying that entire inside of those cabinets, getting everything on all the pots and pans, still requiring the customer to remove everything absolutely from the cabinets, spraying it down, and then come behind and try to use a bait and say, baits don't work. I tried it. They don't work. I got bait resistance. No, you just made a huge blunder. Used a repellent product that contaminated that bait and applied it. You got to get off the spray thing, or at least not spray it in the area that you're going to use the bait. I don't know how many times I hear this locally, online, people giving advice on do-it-yourself blogs on how to control pest problems. And I'm like, you moron, that's never going to work. Look, a pest control professional should be thoroughly equipped in knowledge, in tools, and in products. Understanding pest biology, understanding the chemistry. People who are managers of branches and don't know the difference between a class 3 and a boric acid. That is shameful. That you don't know the difference between one class of pesticide and another. That you don't know the mode of action and you're in a management and leadership position. You should be able to equip your people to do the very best. Like a doctor who makes a diagnosis, writes a prescription, has a protocol and a procedure to follow up with that patient. To be able to do it, find a cure, find a solution to that problem with the least amount of trauma, the least amount of potential side effects, minimally invasive procedures. That's what makes a pro. You are in a skilled trade. You're not a jack of all trades and a master of none. Get into IPM. Thank you for listening, guys. I will see you next time.